Welcome to our deep dive into social media trends in Europe. We're focusing on France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Germany. It's like a snapshot of what's hot and what's not on platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, even podcasts. I'm really curious to see if the old guard is keeping up with the new.
It is a fascinating question. Um, while there are some overarching trends across Europe, each country has its own kind of social media personality, influenced by culture and what each audience prefers.
Let's jump into YouTube. It still seems like the place where a lot of these trends start, but I'm guessing what people are actually watching is really different depending on where they are.
Absolutely. For example, France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. Music videos are king, especially local artists. We're seeing genres like chanson, that classic French style, and amapiano are really taking off.
I'm up, Piano.
It's a really cool genre. It originated in South Africa. It's got like a jazzy, soulful sound. Its popularity in Europe might point to a growing interest in global music trends. But of course, we can't talk about music in Belgium without mentioning Stromae.
He's huge. Do you think his popularity overshadows other Belgian artists? Like, is there a risk of a monoculture?
That's a valid concern. Definitely something to watch out for. Now, besides music, another trend is culinary content. Travel vlogs with regional dishes, cooking tutorials, street food adventures, you name it, it's all over YouTube.
This rise in culinary content is interesting. Do you think it reflects how people experience food and travel differently now? Like, are we moving beyond just snapping a photo and actually engaging more with the culture behind the food?
Yeah, I think so. It could be a sign that people are looking for more authentic travel experiences, even if it's just through their screens. And speaking of travel, vlogs focusing on Europe are making a comeback, especially the ones highlighting less well-known destinations. This may be a direct result of all the travel restrictions over the past few years, kind of like pent-up wanderlust being satisfied online.
That makes sense. It's like a travel guide from people who are really passionate about sharing their discoveries. We can't forget about gaming. I bet FIFA and Call of Duty are still getting tons of views.
Oh, for sure. Those games are practically institutions. Channels offering gameplay tutorials and live streams are really popular.
Well, I've spent a lot of time in those virtual worlds myself. Maybe that's why I can't cook. But seriously, it's interesting how diverse YouTube content is. What about Germany? What's trending over there?
Germany's doing things a little differently.
Yeah.
Educational content is huge. Channels like Easy German and Deutsch Lernen mit der DW are super popular. They teach German in really engaging formats, real-life conversations, multimedia resources. It's fun and accessible.
So not your typical boring grammar lesson.
Okay.
And this interest in learning goes beyond YouTube. Facebook groups have become centers for sharing expertise in Germany, right?
Yes, they have. But before we move on to Facebook, let's finish up with YouTube in Germany. Tech reviews and lifestyle vlogs are gaining traction there. They offer insights into everything from gadgets to daily life.
So it's a glimpse into German culture. And those tech reviews must be helpful with all the new gadgets coming out.
Definitely. Another fascinating trend is live streaming. It's a great way for creators to build community, interacting with their audience in real time.
It's like a virtual hangout.
Oh,
But before we move on, you mentioned videos exploring German culture, traditions, and cuisine are getting more popular.
oh, right. Yeah, there seems to be this resurgence of interest in German heritage. And YouTube is becoming the platform for that. It's like digitally exploring history, art, food, and traditions.
That's cool. Okay, we've talked a lot about YouTube. Let's talk about Facebook. It still has a ton of users in Europe, right?
Huge numbers. In France alone, there are 40 million users. That's a big audience.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
But Facebook isn't always seen as the coolest platform,
Yeah.
especially for younger generations. Is it still relevant?
Well, Facebook might not be the newest thing, but it's still vital for connecting people, especially at the local level.
I've noticed that community groups for niche interests are really popular on Facebook in those countries. It's like a digital town square.
Exactly. These groups show how powerful community and connection are, even online. And for businesses, Facebook's reach is a big deal. It's still a great platform for advertising and sales.
Right, you can really target specific groups with Facebook ads. What about Germany? Is Facebook still important there?
Absolutely. 46.6 million users in Germany, and a lot of them are women between 25 and 34, making it a great platform for marketers.
Okay, so Facebook's still a big deal. But what about Facebook shops? Have you seen those gaining traction?
Well, Facebook's reputation with data privacy might make some people hesitant to buy things on the platform.
That's a good point. Trust is super important for online shopping.
You're right. It's something Facebook needs to address if they want Facebook shops to work.
Yeah.
But overall, it's interesting to see how these platforms are adapting. and finding new ways to engage users.
It's constantly evolving.
It is. That's what keeps social media so dynamic and fascinating.
We've covered YouTube and Facebook, but what about Instagram and TikTok? They seem to be where things really blow up, especially for younger people.
They are. Instagram is still a major force in all 4 countries. It's all about visual storytelling, especially fashion, travel, and lifestyle. But it's interesting to see how creators and brands are using it to connect with their audiences in more authentic ways.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. Those perfectly curated Instagram feeds are fading away. It's more about a raw, unfiltered aesthetic now.
Right. People appreciate vulnerability and imperfection. Influencers are sharing more personal stories, behind-the-scenes stuff, even their struggles.
But is there a risk of, like, performative vulnerability? Could this backfire if it's not authentic?
That's a great question. It's a fine line. Both creators and consumers need to be aware of that. This trend is really noticeable in travel and lifestyle. It's not just about picture-perfect destinations anymore. It's about sharing the whole experience, the ups and downs, the unexpected moments, the real challenges.
Showing the whole picture, not just the glamorous side. I bet brands are starting to embrace this too.
They are. They're realizing that consumers want brands to be genuine and transparent, especially younger generations. It's not enough to have a slick marketing campaign anymore. You need to show your values, your personality, your commitment to social responsibility.
Right. People don't want to feel like they're constantly being sold to. They want to connect with brands on a deeper level.
Exactly. Speaking of connection, let's talk about TikTok. This platform has exploded, especially with younger people. It's all about creativity, spontaneity, and short-form entertainment.
Oh, I know. I've lost so many hours on TikTok. What's interesting to me is TikTok's algorithm. It prioritizes discovery over established followings. It's become a launch pad for all these niche interests and subcultures.
It's true. Anyone can go viral on TikTok. It doesn't matter how many followers you have. It's all about the content.
It's not just dances and funny skits, right?
Yeah.
I've seen educational content, social activism, even business promotion on TikTok.
Yeah, it's becoming a very multifaceted platform. It's breaking down barriers, giving a voice to people who might not have had one before.
It's like its own little internet.
Right.
Okay, let's talk about podcasts. You mentioned they're becoming more popular in Europe. What's driving that? Is it just convenience?
It's probably a mix of things. Convenience is definitely a factor. You can listen while you're doing other things, but there's also a depth and intimacy to podcasts that you don't always find on other platforms. It's like having a conversation.
I agree. I feel like I've learned so much from podcasts. Not just facts, but perspectives I wouldn't have heard otherwise.
Yeah.
And that feeling of connection is what makes them so engaging.
Absolutely. And it makes them a really effective marketing tool. When listeners connect with a host, they trust their recommendations more.
So podcasts are a good option for businesses. What about creators? What advice would you give to someone starting a podcast?
I'd say the most important thing is to be passionate. Your enthusiasm will show, and listeners will pick up on that. You also need to be consistent. Release new episodes regularly, and don't be afraid to experiment. There are no rules with podcasts.
Find your voice and your audience. Okay, we've talked about Instagram, TikTok, and podcasts, but where does Facebook fit into all of this? Is there any overlap?
There's definitely overlap, but also collaboration. Podcasters use Instagram and Facebook to promote their shows, and some podcasters are hosting their shows on YouTube now.
Adding a visual element.
Exactly. It shows that these platforms aren't separate. They're all part of a larger ecosystem.
A network of content and communities.
Exactly. That's what makes it all so dynamic and exciting.
Right. It's not just about the individual platforms. It's how they all work together.
It is, like a dance.
A dance.
But let's talk more about Facebook. We mentioned its massive user base. How is it adapting to TikTok and these other newer platforms?
Yes, it's still the place to connect with friends and family.
I think Facebook recognizes the importance of both personal connections and community engagement.
I've noticed it's become more focused on local communities and groups, like a digital town square.
You're right. Facebook is tailoring its features to encourage that sense of community. And for businesses, it's still a great way to advertise and build brand awareness.
But it's not just resting on its laurels. What else is Facebook doing to innovate?
They're investing in new features like virtual and augmented reality and refining their algorithms to personalize things even more. They're also pushing into the metaverse.
We'll have to save that for another deep dive.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
But it seems like Facebook is working hard to keep up.
They are experimenting, innovating, trying to predict what users will want.
It's like a game of chess.
It is. And Facebook is playing to win. But before we wrap up our discussion of these platforms, it's important to remember that social media isn't just about entertainment. It's also a powerful tool for education and social change.
We've talked about that, how platforms like TikTok and YouTube can be used to educate and raise awareness.
Right. Social media has the potential to be a force for good.
It's more than just a way to pass the time.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a few things to think about.
Okay, I'm ready.
We've seen just how diverse the European social media landscape is. It's always changing. But what stands out is how these platforms are being used. It's not just for fun and connection, but for things like education, business, and activism.
It's like social media is becoming this multi-purpose tool.
Exactly. And we have the power to shape it, to use it to make a positive impact.
So what's next? What trends should we be watching for in the future?
I think authenticity and transparency will continue to be important. Consumers are getting smarter, they can tell when something's fake, and they want real connections.
So no more fake, polished social media profiles.
No, you need to be real. Show your personality. And I think short-form video is here to stay. TikTok proved that people love those quick, engaging videos, and now everyone's doing it.
Even Facebook has Reels.
It's true. Short-form video is something you can't ignore. I think social media will become even more integrated into our lives. We're already seeing it with shopping and banking, even dating and healthcare.
Wow. Like social media is becoming the operating system for our lives.
Yeah, kind of. Which is exciting, but also a little scary.
For sure.
But in the end, it's about using social media responsibly. We have so much power, we need to use it wisely.
Any final thoughts?
Think about how you're using social media. Are you using it to connect and create, or is it consuming you?
That's a good point. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into European social media. Until next time, keep exploring and keep connecting.